You're here to join us for some inspiration with some paint blending and stamping and rubbing on transferring fun. I have just regular cardstock. I have several pieces of it, but I have cardstock because I have old scratched up picture frames. Now, these are plastic picture frames, but did you know Rethunk junk paint will stick to plastic superbly? So what I'd like to do is create my own wall decor. So I'll take this frame apart. So let's just mark the edge of this paper for the corners like that. Run a line across the edges of it so I see exactly where to cut. That fits perfectly. So, and it's a pretty piece of cardstock. So once we embellish this, then we'll have a very inexpensive decor product. I am going to break out my Cloverfield because this is an amazing color green for spring. With any of your paint products, make sure you shake well before you start using it. And look how beautiful that is. So if you've heard me talk about prep, if you've not tried our paint products, prep is a liquid sanding agent. Pardon me. It is also a deglosser and an adhesion promoter, all in one tidy little bottle. This keeps you from having to make a mess sanding. That's some spring green right there. I'm going to leave that alone. I can probably go ahead and hit my edges while we're here so that at least they are started. Such a pretty green. It reminds me of a very popular emerald green that's on the market right now. And with these new spring colors, I have found that blending them is easy, and I'm working on some recipes with these colors to attain other colors. If you wanted a gentle spring color, yellow green like the leaves turn first, a touch of marigold will get you where you want to go. Lift this up. Beautiful, beautiful Cloverfield by Rethunk Junk Paint. That's one coat. We're going to set it to the side. I've got my acetate sheet so I can lay out my inks. I'm going to lay my cardstock. Now this did not come from Painterly Florals. This came from Wallflower. And that's a beautiful rose. Let's use that. Lowercase. Now let's see what we can do here, because I'll bet these will fit. because I don't have another O in this set, to make sure I'm spaced out properly, I'm going to take another letter that's about the same size, which is the C. Doesn't matter which way it lays because I'm not going to use it to stamp. I'm just going to use it to set. So this helps me set my typography, and I'm going to pull it away from the edges so that when I put it in the frame, we don't lose any of our typography. And I think that right there looks just about right. What do you think? I'm going to leave the C in there until after I stamp my other letters. Now, because I'm going on to cardstock, my color's going to vary a little bit, mostly because the paper's going to absorb some of the ink. Now, I know you can't read that, but that is Deep Ocean. Very well loved. And this is New Grass. And when I did the lettering for Bless Our Home, I took my New Grass and laid my line down, and I took my Oceans Deep, but I took a couple of drops of the Oceans Deep and I laid in there, and that way I got a good blend of coloring so that when I do this, because I love to mix my inks, but when I do this, do you see how it kind of peacocked the colors together? And I love that effect, because once I roll my brayer in it just a couple of times, you can't see it really on the brayer, but now I have a multi-tonal finish to my letters, and the New Grass and the Oceans Deep together are a beautiful combination. So if you're wondering sometimes how to get those tones, just play with your inks a little bit. And usually when I'm teaching a class, I always recommend start on paper, because if you make a mistake on paper, it's just paper. If you make a mistake when you're doing a piece of furniture and you can't get it off quickly enough, then you're going to end up with ink somewhere you've got to repaint. So a little bit smooth. And see, I love stamping on cardstock because I don't get a perfect image. There are going to be missing spots, so it distresses as you ink it. And I'll do my O individually and lay it in all by itself. Hopefully I'm lined up smoothly. One good smush, and voila, we have bloom. Now I have butterflies and I have birds. And since the birds and the branches and the blossoms, I love this one, y'all. Did you know this was one of the retired stamps? I love this little spray, because that just looks like it belongs with this rose. Not like a craquelure, but almost. Almost. And I think it'll be just fine with this rose set, but I think, and I made my own I made my own masks before they were available in this stamp set. And oh, the bee. There needs to be a bee. We have to have the bee. How about that? Let's do the bee, and let's mask the bee, because you hear us talking about masking all the time. And I know I try to explain it, but masking is one of those things that you go, oh, I get it. So I stamped the bee on a piece of paper. Cardstock would have been better. And the reason I did that is, if I want my rose here and I want my bee here, I don't want my bee over the top of my rose. And if I have my rose over the top of my bee, but I've stamped the whole image, then it's going to look muddy. It's not going to look clean. My bee is a little large, isn't it? It's still beautiful. Maybe not the bee. But what you would do is whatever image you want on the surface first, you would stamp or transfer first. So if I want my bee on top of my rose, then I'm going to mask, transfer, I'm going to stamp, mask, and then transfer. That way my bee image stays clean the whole time. So we want turmeric, because we want our little bee in turmeric. So I've got my Iron Orchid Designs turmeric. I'm going to draw a little line of ink, because I don't need a lot, just a little bit. Touch that back in, and it doesn't have to be an exact, because we're blooming, and that bee kind of looks like he ate my rose. A little bit here, a little bit there. Ta-da! Is that right side up, or is that right side up? And I may take my little sanding block and I might distress it just a little bit. And I'll probably fill some green back in right here. And then, oh, let me grab my picture frame. It's not quite dry because it's cold today. I'll put another coat of green on. I might use some of the brand new Rethunk Junk Soft White glaze. to kind of soften this green down a little bit and match our bloom. I might not. I might just paint the whole thing just green. But how lovely. How absolutely lovely. A stamp and some transfers and a little bit of ink and time.